For real this time. All right, hi listeners, and welcome to a special episode of In Defense of Fandom. So, you probably noticed the season is over. We are all done with parasocial relationships and celebrity worship, at least for the time being. But we did get some great listener questions, and so that's what I'm going to do today with my editor, Anna Funk. We're going to be talking about some of the questions you guys sent in, trying to answer them, and just having a little chat. So, yeah. Glad to see you on screen, Anna.
Good to see you, always. All right, I will just start us off with our first question. It comes from Ruth. So, Ruth wants to know if you knew a celebrity you had a parasocial relationship with, saw you as a number, would that change your fanish behavior around them?
I mean, the honest answer is clearly no, because I still go to supernatural conventions. Nothing has changed. Um, but I do think some of that has to do with who you have that relationship with and how, like, how much separation there is.
Hmm.
Um, I think that like a Swiftie or like Beehive or a Cake Pop stan, I don't know, Army I think is BTS. Uh I think there's a lot more awareness that like you're buying a ticket for a concert. And you may still have that parasocial bond with Taylor
Hmm.
or Beyonce or whoever, but you're not expecting something out of it. You're not like, I spent this much
Yeah,
money on
yeah,
this
yeah.
ticket, and so this celebrity is going to notice me more. Like that's definitely not the case. Um, Conventions feel more like that, but these are all different kinds of
Uh-huh.
interactions, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm pretty self-aware when it comes to this sort of thing, and I think that sort of keeps my own parasocial relationships in check because I like am very clear on the fact that I am a number, and that these people don't care about me. Um, yeah, but I totally hear you on like the smaller fandoms, like going to conventions, like meeting someone repeatedly, like they start to recognize you, like that's when it gets confusing. So I think you do have to remind yourself that you're just a number and that like that relationship's not real, um but
Or it's
yeah,
like
I don't
not
think
as
I
real as like, right? Because
yeah,
like I'm
yeah.
also thinking about like, what about like a small band that's touring and like you go to a lot of their shows and like there is that disparity of fan and artist, but it's maybe not as big as like going to a convention for a TV show for a person you would
Uh-huh,
only,
uh-huh.
right? Like I think that's
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
hanging out with a band at their merch table afterwards, and getting to know them maybe feels a little less power dynamic,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah, I think it's a good reality check. I agree. It's like I
Yeah.
don't know that it would change my behavior, but it's a good reality check to make sure I'm not overextending myself, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Cool. I'll read the next one. Um, this question is from me. So I wrote in, how self-aware do we think most people with parasocial friendships are? Like the feelings are real, but we all know that we don't actually know the celebrity. But I imagine there's a spectrum, especially when you do get a celebrity that's actually interacting with fans. Like some slice of people are going to start to think like, oh, there is a real relationship here. I could actually be friends with them. I am actually friends with them. So I just wonder like how many people fall along that spectrum. And I feel like in all of our discussions about parasocial relationships, like these are kind of confounded. Like, do people actually think there's a relationship, or does it just feel a certain way, but you're like very self-aware that it's not real?
Yeah, I mean, so what's really interesting to me is that the original, like the paper on parasocial relationships, was very
Hmm.
specifically about TV personalities, radio
Hmm.
personalities, right? People that you would never have an interaction with day to day.
Hmm.
That was
Hmm.
the original research. But now, because of social media and because of conventions and because of like just changes in cultural expectations, like we do end up having interactions. And so it's
Uh-huh.
not that pure delineation of like, oh, the nice man on TV who talks about his dog and his wife, I feel like I know him versus like the guy I see twice a year because I go to conventions to get a picture with him. And you're like, okay, I mean, like,
Yeah.
technically he knows your face, but like, he's not your friends. And it almost gets into this weird, like, it reminds me of the service industry. Like, are you friends with your dentist? Like, you see your dentist twice a year.
Ooh.
And when they're in your mouth, they're telling you all kinds of personal stories. Or like your hairdresser. Like, are you
Yeah,
friends
yeah,
with your
yeah.
hairdresser?
I would love to be friends with my hairdresser, but we haven't crossed that threshold yet.
So, because they are
Um,
providing a service, right? And you're paying
huh.
money to go see them.
Yeah. I guess I think a lot about who was that video we showed? It was like was it Chappell Roan
Yeah.
was talking about like fans coming up to her and like hugging her and she was like, "You are not my friend."
Yeah.
And my response was, "I don't think they're hugging you because they think they're literally your friend. Like I don't think that's what's happening." Like I get your point and I respect that you want more boundaries, but also I don't know that they like literally think that they're your friend.
Yeah. I mean, and I think also like I think there's a lot of individual differences too. I think there's some people who
Yeah.
really are interested in that kind of like celebrity gossip, but if they were to meet a person, would be totally chill and professional about it. I mean, we had a whole episode, right, where we had Tammy and Chris and Jennifer talking about like they geek out about things, but when it
Uh-huh,
comes to
uh-huh.
actually meeting celebrities, they're like, yeah, but I'm a professional. I'm here to do a job.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I think there's like a lot of variety, and I wonder if some of that also has to do with like what your social networks look like outside of parasociality. Like, do
Mm,
you have a really strong community? Do you live with family? Do you have a partner? Do you have really close friends? Because I think it's all relative weights, and I do worry about the
mm,
loneliness epidemic and people
mm.
not feeling like they have a very good community, and then putting a lot of the weight that they would put on more reciprocal relationships onto these parasocial ones versus people who I think do have like a good community. This is kind of like a fun bonus.
Yeah. I like that. I like that.
I
Mm,
think that's how I think of it. And that's not to
mm,
say you can't create those real communities out of fandom, but then it needs to be less about the celebrity and more about like, I got into it because I like this show, this actor, whatever. And now I found a bunch of other friends who like similar things to me. And now we all do stuff together. And like those are aspects I think are healthy. Like that's community building, right? Where you're all reciprocally taking care of each other, texting, checking in, whatever. It's not just this like we focus only our attention here.
mhm, mhm. Cool. All right. Ready?
Yeah, next question.
Um,
This
next
one's
question
from
comes from
me.
Sadie.
A question to myself, let's be honest.
Let's see. Okay, this is a quote. This is more of a comment than a question. No, I'm just kidding. There is
That's
a question.
exactly how I wrote it.
Um, the quote is from a review article, and it says, "Celebrities are a difficult population for a researcher to recruit participants from." And Sadie says, "I wish I could have heard more from celebrities on this topic. So, how different is it to be a true Hollywood star versus our favorite local band?"
Yeah, I like when I read this in this review, I think it was the Maltby and Giles review paper.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, worshiping at the altar of stars. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a really specific population. Like, how would you
Uh-huh.
recruit them? Because I'm already thinking in my psychology
Yeah,
brain. But
they're
what
hard to contact.
Yeah, I've tried. They're hard to contact.
Yeah, yeah.
But like what does that feel like from that end? And we talked a little bit about it, but like a lot of the people we talked to maybe aren't as aware. Maybe celebrities aren't as aware either. Maybe they notice more paparazzi than they notice parasociality,
Hmm.
right?
I don't know.
Like, because in your day-to-day, like I'm just like imagining, like, let's pretend I am George Clooney. In my day-to-day life,
Hmm.
how often am I on social media, like on my account, replying to people or out in conventions or public appearances that
Yeah,
aren't like
like
red carpet
never.
events? Yeah.
Yeah,
Who you're actually interacting with is
yeah.
like your publicist, the
Hmm.
papers and magazines and things that are doing your interviews, the paparazzi, like and then other people you're interacting with are like people at, I don't want to say your caliber, but like your level of
Yeah,
whatever you're doing. And so you're all having kind of the same experience. And then, yeah, sure, you have hired help, you have a driver or you have a nanny
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. But like, how often are you actually meeting the people on Twitter or Instagram who are like, have that parasocial
Yeah.
feeling?
I wonder if part of it is like, are you big enough to have your own marketing team? Like, are you running your own Instagram account? Or do
Yeah.
you like have a person that's doing that for you?
Is that the line? Is
Like
that when it ticks over?
maybe, yeah. Like, are you subject to your own Instagram comments or not? Maybe that's the
Yes.
that's my dividing line.
Do you read the
I don't
comments?
know.
Because I can
Yeah.
think of some like quite famous people who are like own their own accounts, but I
Yeah.
don't think they're reading comments.
Yeah. And some people might like it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like interacting, but you can also just not. Like if you're big enough, you have the option to just not. Whereas if you're smaller, there's that pressure of like, oh, I need to be building my fandom.
Right. Building
I
my
need to be
base.
interacting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just
Hmm.
I think there are different there's like the growth level, there's the like established like this is where I'm happy to be. And then there's like the people who are maybe just like so famous like they know it exists but it doesn't impact anything about their daily life because
Hmm.
it's just so far removed.
Yeah.
I don't know. George Clooney, hit me up. What's your life like? Tom Cruise, let's talk.
I know. I know. Call us. Cool.
Next one.
All right. Here's a new question. This comes from user Fracking Awkward on Blue Sky. They wrote, Hello, I am a big fan of the podcast. My question about parasocial relationships is about the evolution of them. I consider myself an elder. I'm almost 40. I remember when all of this fandom stuff was taboo in society, and now I have students who introduce themselves via their ships. I am interested to know, have parasocial relationships become socially acceptable in society, or is it still in the fringe of society? For the Scam Goddess podcast, Lacey Mosley actually says, Hey, parasocial friends. I love that. How much do celebrities play into the parasocial relationships, and how much do they regret doing that? In addition to that, the SPN family, as we are called, really helps to create an even closer bond. Do they ever regret or wish they did it differently? That
There's
is a
a
lot of questions. Let's first talk about, is it socially acceptable now more than in the past?
I would say yes.
I agree.
Um, and I think that's true for a lot of fan interests in general. I think there has been a noticeable shift, like the 80s where like the geeks were like the underdogs and the jocks
Hmm.
were like king of the school or whatever. And I think there's been a clear shift. I would say like probably the popularity of like the Marvel movies has something to do with that, where like
Hmm.
geek is cool because that became mainstream. And so pop culture
Yeah.
as a whole became more mainstream in this particular way. Like I would say
Yeah.
it actually is probably socially more negative to talk about like Real Housewives of X, like reality TV, than it is to talk about your fandoms in a weird way. And I think I
I think
definitely
it
see the same.
depends on who you're friends with.
That's true.
So
That's
I
true.
saw a shift. So I've lived in a lot of places and hung with a lot of circles that had differing interests. And I would say like moving from a like scientist, journalist, like 110% liberal, educated nerd community, moving to a town in Missouri and like meeting a lot of friends at church. Like it's like culture shock. And so I think it just depends on like what is mainstream like in your friend group.
Yeah.
Um, I'm still surprised when people are telling me that they're watching The Housewives. I'm just like, really? What?
I
But like, if you, like, I mean, these shows are like wildly popular, so that's a perfect example of like someone's watching them.
yes. No, it's
They
not that I
weren't
don't think people are
my
watching
friends.
them. I don't think everybody's always talking about it, maybe. And maybe that's not
Hmm.
a good example. The other thing I was thinking about was like anime growing up was so
Ooh.
nerdy, taboo. People like, oh, you're watching like
Uh-huh.
cartoons as an adult. Like that's so dumb. And now
Hmm.
it is extremely mainstream and has like
Hmm.
become very popular in even like specific communities in a way that it was
Hmm.
not when I
Hmm.
was a kid. Like I
Hmm.
remember creating an anime club in middle school. And then I was like, these people are too weird and people are making fun of me and I don't want to do this anymore. Like,
Sweet,
and
sweet little
now,
Sadie. Yeah. It's okay.
so
It took you a little longer to embrace it. It's fine.
yeah, I do think it's more mainstream. I guess maybe like being aggressive in your interests is more mainstream. There might be something to
Ooh.
say around like our identities based on our consumptive patterns. Like
Yeah.
capitalism has made us all about like the audience we represent, right? Like
Yeah.
here's what you can sell to me almost.
Yeah. Well, I think also the internet has given us just so much access to other fans that it feels like our fandom is less weird because in our area of the internet, like everyone is also a fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Until
And
you
maybe
say
we forget
something
that
to
it's
someone
not
in
normal
person.
IRL. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. So then her second question was, um, what was it? Oh, do celebrities regret playing into the parasocialness,
Yeah.
especially, and she mentioned scam goddess, and then she also mentioned the like the supernatural family, right? Like the fact that we
Yeah.
even use that phrase, I say we because it is we. Yeah, when I first heard that, I'm not gonna lie, before I was too deep in, I was like, oh, that's kind of, I don't know if I like that. It kind of weirded me
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
now I'm
Yeah.
like, SPN family.
Yeah.
I don't know. You'd have to ask them if
Yeah.
they regret it.
Yeah. I don't know that it's mm, I'm trying to think of a scenario where it could have like gone wrong and they're like, "Oh, I wish we had." I don't think so. I think everybody wants to have fans. Like if you're famous, that's what it is. That's what famous means.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like,
So,
having fans means you might get more work, right? You're a musician, you might
yeah.
get a label, takes you on for a new album or,
Yeah. So maybe if there was like a specific line that was crossed that led to like more negative interactions, like maybe that would be bad,
I think
but just in general.
I think the main kind of like parasocial oversharing that I could imagine being negative from a celebrity's point of view. There's two,
Hmm.
and there are varying levels. One, I think if you have children and people decide because you are important to their life, your children also are relevant. And like I could see that being uncomfortable of like,
Mm.
I don't need strangers to know when my child's birthday is, like
Uh-huh.
trying to not put them online, things like that. I could see
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that being like a weird
Uh-huh.
line to draw.
Yeah.
Um, and I think another example I could think of that could be maybe not something to regret, but something that could be hard is like famously, Jared Padalecki shared his struggles with depression and mental
Hmm.
health. And I think that's like really important and good visibility. And also I could see how that would lead to people coming up to him and saying extremely devastating sob stories in person. And I
Oh,
think that could be exhausting. Like I don't think it's a bad
yeah.
thing because they feel seen, right? They're like, oh, parasocial thing we have in common. But if you had to like go to a convention and you heard like 20 like just horrible personal
Yeah.
anecdotes, that would be really, you would want to show empathy and that would be not bad, but like exhausting.
That's a really interesting example. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because once you open that door, like you can't turn it off. So I can picture like someone like Jared being like, "No, I want those interactions. I want that empathy." Like 95% of the time. And maybe 5% of the time being like, I wish I could just like turn
Not.
it off. Or like if he's having a rough day, it's like I can't handle like everyone else's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, that is
Huh.
why at conventions, they do ask you to write down if you have like a personal message that you want to share. First of all, because you don't have a whole lot of time with
Oh.
people,
Uh-huh,
but
uh-huh.
also if you have like a very personal emotive story that you want to share. That way they
Mhm.
can have all these written down and they can read them later, home or like be able to space themselves out.
Uh-huh.
So I think that,
I didn't know that. I like that.
yeah, that probably helps. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I do think I think it's a major benefit to use parasociality for celebrities. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
leverages.
Yeah.
So, but there are downsides. Next
All right,
question.
let's check out the next one. Can I skim this first? It's long.
Yes, it's kind of a two-parter. I got a lot of free responses and they're pretty long.
Hmm. Okay. Next question is anonymous. Um, and they are asking a question about supernatural. So they say, I think what fascinates me most are the levels of parasocial relationships. For example, knowing Misha's real name to me is common knowledge, but there are people who are surprised Misha isn't his real name. I think that's a very basic level of parasocialness. I also think that the lines are so blurred in this fandom, it's easy to go too far. People really don't say anything until you're too deep. So I guess my question would be, is there a limit or a line that this fandom can agree on where we say, nope, too far, let's bring it back a bit?
Wait, I gotta ask you, do you know Misha's real name?
I do not know Misha's real name.
You're my editor.
I do not.
His name is Dimitri. I also think that that feels like common
Oh,
knowledge.
maybe I did know that Misha was like short for
Yeah,
that
I
Misha's
mean,
like a common shorthand for like another name. Yeah, I think I
yeah.
did know that.
Misha is a like Slavic, I think mostly Russian, like a diminutive form
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I think I did
Dimitri.
know that.
And his last name isn't Collins either. His legal name. I mean, like it's a stage
I
name,
can't
right?
remember. I don't know if I knew that or not.
Krushnitz. It's a like once again Slavic last name. But yeah, no, see, and I'm like,
See?
obviously my editor would know
Obviously.
this.
But like I don't think that's like crossing a line because like obviously it's public information or else nobody would know it. I don't know.
When does public information become weird though? Right? Because like I realized this the other day because I
Mm,
was thinking about road rage incidents and I was like, "Oh, well, can you?" My husband was like, "Well, can they
as you
look
do.
up your license plate and like try to stalk you?" He was like, "No, surely not." And I looked up, I was like, "Oh my God. Yeah, if you write down my license plate, it is like a public lookup to find my name and
Oh,
address."
and address.
Yeah. Yeah, right? It's kind
Oh.
of scary. I was like, "That's technically public knowledge." Like you got to do some digging, but like none of
On
that
TV, you have
is
to call your guy at the police station and be like, "Look this up. Run the plates."
I think it's like $3 to get that information from most
Huh.
like commercial websites that'll like
Huh.
scrape for you. It kind of made me a little creeped out, I'm not gonna lie. So
Yeah,
like
that's creepy.
when is public or like you public knowledge made an offhand comment about something and then like 6 months later someone has like this whole thing to say to you about that? That would feel I don't know if that would feel threatening, but it would feel too
Hmm.
far. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know. It depends what it is.
Depends what it is. I wonder for me if it's not like specific tidbits, but just like volume of tidbits. Like once you know everything about someone, it's like, okay, you maybe need to like give them some space.
Yeah. Or like, yeah. Would it be weird to go up to someone who you've never met in person, but you do know all the pieces and you just start like spewing facts that are related to that? Like that, I think it's maybe it's less about what you know and more about how you use those pieces.
Mm,
Do you disagree?
I think just knowing too much might be a line crossed.
Yeah. I don't think it's easy to draw that line. And I think it is hard to draw that line within a fandom community because like
Yeah.
everybody is very supportive of each other, which is awesome. But also sometimes to all of our detriment, they're like, no, buy that photo op. You deserve that. And you're like, okay, this is toxic spending patterns being reinforced internally, you guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes, not all the time. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know your financial situation, but also maybe don't spend X $100 if you like don't have it in savings. I don't like it gets into
Yeah.
some weird stuff there. Where
Hmm.
I think it's hard for other people to tell you you've gone too far until you really have gone too far.
Yeah. Well, see, the spending doesn't bother me because I feel like there's so many weird hobbies that so many people have. Like,
The amount of money I have friends that
I
have
think of one
spent.
friend what's my one friend's skiing budget for the year? What's my Disney adult friend's Disney World budget for the year?
Right.
Like
How many
there's
guitars
so
does this friend
many,
own? How many
yes, there
like
are
fish
so many
tanks?
like multi-thousand-dollar hobbies that people have that we don't really think about like the cost. So maybe I'm just like, if this is your thing, like whatever. Like maybe it's not what I would do, or like I would pick a different, I don't know. People have expensive hobbies, is my point. So
Yes,
I don't know if we can put a dollar amount on like how much is too much.
fair. Yeah. No, I think that's true. Yeah, because it's all relevant or relative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I think there is a line.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I
I don't
think I'm going
know.
to
I don't
give
know.
the Supreme Court justice answer of I know it when I see it. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah, yeah, yeah,
about?
yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I have a friend who's
Fandom,
a
it's just like nudie mags.
yeah. Yeah. I have a friend who's a giant, giant Swiftie, and she like has a like cardboard cutout of Taylor Swift in her house and just like knows way too much information. But it's never given me the ick. Does that make sense? I've
Yes.
never been like, you shouldn't know that, and you need to like stop and take a
Yeah.
break. It's like it has always felt benign, even though it has felt to me as a non-Swiftie as like a lot.
Right. It feels like an eye roll, not an ick.
Yes, yes,
Really? Ugh,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ick is real though. I've given myself the ick once or twice of like things that I'm like, nope, time to go touch grass. We've been online too long. Gotta go.
That's funny.
I will not be sharing at this time what I'm
Tell me
specifically.
later. Tell me
I'll tell
later.
you later.
All right, let's do the next one.
Yeah.
Um, this is another anonymous. Um, this is also from the same person as before.
Yes. Yeah.
Question about cons, especially creation cons. The parasocial relationships are very encouraged because it's a company run by fans, basically. They become friends so that you have people in charge who can select who they want to be close to. Sorry, who they want to be close to certain actors. Let me start over. The next question is also anonymous, again, same person. Question about cons, especially creation cons. So the parasocial relationships are encouraged because it's a company run by fans, basically. They become friends, so you have people in charge who can select who they want to be close to certain actors. Not saying this is good or bad, just observing it from working cons. It makes for a more interesting dynamic of encouragement with the parasocial relationships. The actors get to know a certain few well. Is there a level between parasocial and friend? I tend to call it a con acquaintance. I love it and also know it makes fans who are not in that position feel less than as a fan. So, how do well known parasocial relationships affect others in the fandom? And should people be more cognizant of that?
Yeah. This like gets these kinds of conventions kind of get into the ground of like the original phrase BNF, big name fan, which
Mm-hmm.
I think the origin of that phrase was at Star Trek conventions, I believe.
Uh-huh.
They were the fans who were the ones organizing the conventions and would get
Uh-huh.
the like the writers, the artists, the actors, whoever to come. And so they're like the BNFs, like they
Huh.
knew other people. And so there's kind of like this weird power hierarchy in a weird way of
Uh-huh.
like the person involved in the show you like art whatever the person who has direct access to it and then the general fan and the
Yeah.
general fan sometimes trying to be friends with the BNF to get access, right? Like that's that like
Mhm.
access lanes. um and I do think that's really weird and hard and like I'm often thinking about how conventions rely on a lot of free or very, very cheap labor and our own passions to do things.
Hmm.
And like, that's not always bad. I volunteer. I do a lot of things where I don't get paid, but like some of it feels weird. Some like it's the company is not a
Hmm.
not-for-profit. Like it's
Yeah.
weird. I don't
Hmm.
know.
I don't know. I don't know that the BNFs have any responsibility to like, I don't know, do anything differently. I mean, yeah, the other fans are going to be jealous,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I guess don't be a jerk,
yeah,
right? Don't
don't
be
be a
an
jerk
a-hole.
about it. Yeah.
Um, because it's not like I don't know. I think that gets into that weird, like sometimes grasping behavior. I like is the phrase that always comes to mind of like
What do you mean?
people trying to like claw their way closer to
Oh,
favorite parasocial crush. And so the BNFs feel like a threat, but like is that their fault or is it their behavior that's leading to like that like it gets into weird social power dynamics that like are interesting to observe, but I don't have an answer to, I think.
yeah. I don't really have an answer either.
Sorry,
I like
no
the
good answer on
phrase.
this one.
I like the con acquaintance phrase.
On
That's good.
acquaintance. It feels accurate. You're
All
like, yeah, I
right.
see them twice a year, you know?
Yeah. Here's another anonymous question is what is the inverse of a parasocial relationship?
Mm. Yeah, so I think there's two ways you could take this, right? Is the inverse people having a parasocial relationship with you and you don't know anything about them, or Or is a negative parasocial relationship when you know everything about a person because you hate them. It's still a relationship, but
Yeah.
it's an angry hate relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Is a parasocial relationship by definition positive?
not in any of the papers I think it's assumed positive, but
Yeah.
like I don't know that ever seen anybody define it. I think people think like, well, if you don't care for someone, you won't learn things about them. But that's different
Yeah.
than being like people hate watch and hate read. Like so I feel like I know a lot more about Donald Trump than I ever needed to,
Yeah.
right? But I don't think that's a parasocial relationship. I know more about him than he knows
Yeah.
about me. But is that just fame? Is that not a parasocial relationship? Because I don't feel close, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Interesting. The other way parasocial could be inversed is just like when it's a very reciprocal, perfectly even reciprocal real life relationship.
Yes, me and my husband have an inverse parasocial relationship where we know equal amounts about each other and
Yes.
care equal amounts.
Yeah. I don't know. That feels kind of unsatisfying.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I can't define the
What?
antithesis.
Okay, what if a celebrity somehow knew everything about you,
I would
but
be
you didn't
concerned,
know
I'm
that?
not gonna lie. I feel like you should have a more interesting life.
Yeah.
Um, so is it then like a power imbalance that then is like, but parasocial the other way, where it's like relative power
Oh.
goes one way,
Yep, yep,
knowledge of the
yep.
other person goes the other way?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example where that would ever happen.
A celebrity, okay, so I just watched this really great TV series called Tales from the Tour Bus, and it's like behind the
Hmm.
scenes stories of in this case country singers. And they were talking about Jerry Lee Lewis, and he
Hmm.
married his 13-year-old second cousin.
Okay.
Yeah. When he was in his 20s. And I would say that that could be an example because he has all the power as famous musician man and age, but he probably knew a
Oh.
lot more about her than like they interviewed her, like than she was not a parasocial fan. She was not like
Mm.
one of the like girls going to his concerts. It was literally his second cousin.
Hmm.
It's a really ick example, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, we're running out of time. Let's do the last
Okay,
one.
we have one more.
One more.
This question is from Daniel. How do we get people out of parasitical relationships and instead organize for a better world? How can I use my attractive face to get people into leftist politics?
It was supposed to say parasocial, but I autocorrect made it parasitical, and I kind of love that.
Parasitical. Um,
Um, this is
you
so
want me to read it again?
yeah, no, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's hilarious. Like I don't think that parasociality means that you can't organize. I think there are
Yeah,
lots of examples of famous people using their fame to bring attention to things, right? Like
yeah,
tons of celebrities right now getting thrown under the bus for saying they support like Gazan lives
yeah,
or using their fame to start a nonprofit charity. Like that's not the same as like organizing politically. I
yeah,
would say it's still doing good. It's probably not the same kind of organizing that he's talking about here. But like I don't think they're necessarily antithetical to each other. I
yeah.
think
I agree.
a lot of movements have figureheads, right?
Yeah. Well, and even they can just be totally separate. Like you can be like a Star Trek fan, and I don't think that affects whether or not you are politically active or doing whatever
Yeah.
like IRL thing you are passionate about. Like,
Yes. I
I don't
contain
know.
multitudes, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
I do many things.
I can be a fan and organize for a better world.
Yeah. So there. But yeah, you can, I guess, like become a TikTok star and use that to make people join your political movement.
Yeah,
Do you?
yeah. Or you can, yeah, embrace the parasocial and try and use it to your benefit with your attractive face.
Yes. Yeah. Well, those were the questions for today. Did you have any last thoughts or questions? I know we each gave each other one, but
No, no.
well, this is fun. I think this was a really interesting season. I think it was a fun needle to thread because
Yes,
like sometimes I would be like, oh, this is so gross and weird. We shouldn't do this. And sometimes I was like, but it's me and I like it.
but I like it.
So I think it was fun. Thanks for doing this with me as a little
Of
fun
course.
bonus.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Uh, all right. Thanks y'all for listening. Bye.
Bye.